Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the nerd on the street, and today we are going to be flashing an ISO to a USB flash drive using Etcher. Alright everyone, so here at Nerd on the Street I talk about Linux a lot, and one thing that I don't talk about very often is actually making the install media that you use to install Linux on your computer. No matter what distribution you're running, if it's Ubuntu, Fedora, OpenSUSE, Arch, whatever, you're going to have to download that distribution to your computer in the form of an ISO file before you can install it, and you're going to have to install it by flashing that ISO to a flash drive and booting from it on your computer. 5 or 10 years ago, it would have been more common to flash the ISO to a CD or DVD, but of course optical media is being phased out these days, and a lot of ISOs don't even fit on DVDs anymore. So hopefully this video will be helpful to somebody out there. Now, as a prerequisite, you are going to need a flash drive. Personally, I always use 8GB flash drives. 8GB or higher for OS installations. You don't typically see operating systems taking up more than 8GB on their install disk unless it's something crazy like Mac OS. And I don't actually know if Mac OS takes up more than 8GB. I think some versions of Mac OS or Windows installers might require larger flash drives, but I would just grab at least an 8GB drive. Now, it is very important to note, whatever flash drive you're flashing this ISO onto, it will wipe the drive out. So don't use a flash drive that has important documents on it. If you're using a small 8GB flash drive, then you can probably just easily copy all your files from the flash drive to your computer so that you can temporarily use the drive to install Linux, and then you can use a partition editor to create a partition. Just reformat the drive after you're done and it'll work like normal again. And finally, before we get started, I do want to say there are a lot of different programs you can use for this purpose. Etcher is of course not the only one. I've been using Etcher for a number of years now, and it's become my favorite just because it's so simple and easy to not mess up. Before Etcher was even around, there was one called SUSE Studio Image Writer. It's still around too. That was my favorite before. Etcher has a nicer interface. Etcher is written with electrons, so some people don't like that because it's a lot of overhead for a very simple program. But yeah, Etcher has been around for quite a few years now, and it's never done me wrong. Now, there are some programs out there that kind of meddle with the ISO file. Programs like Rufus or UNetBootIn. UNetBootIn was kind of abandoned last time that I checked, but Rufus is one that I've heard people recommend more recently. The problem with programs like UNetBootIn and Rufus is that they actually go into the ISO file and they modify some of the Linux boot files. They're trying to be smart and they're trying to help you, but more often than not, they just end up messing things up. So you'll hear some people swear by Rufus and or UNetBootIn or other things. You'll hear people say that they help and make it easier. Personally, I stick to programs like SUSE Studio Image Writer or Etcher, and those programs just copy the ISO bit by bit. They don't mess with the files at all. And on the back end, they're basically just using DD, which is a command line utility for copying bit by bit. And I do know how to copy ISO files to flash drives using DD manually, which is always handy to know how to do in a pinch. But when I'm actually doing this on a daily basis to install Linux on computers, I'm usually using a GUI like Etcher, just because it's quicker and easier and it's harder to mess up, like I said. You don't want to accidentally copy an ISO to the wrong flash drive or hard drive and wipe out important files. And you could unmount all the hard drives you're not using and make sure that you list out all your partitions and make sure that you're selecting the right drive when you're running DD, or you can just use a program like Etcher that uses labels and makes it simple for you. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and cut to the desktop and I'll show you guys this process. Alright, and here we are on the desktop. I'm going to go ahead and open up Etcher, and it is a free program. I think the company who makes it, or the group who makes it, has been sort of experimenting with some business model type stuff, which I would keep an eye on that and be wary of anything they try and charge for, because this is a very simple program, nothing worth paying for. They have recently been changing their logos around too, which worries me. But of course it is an open source project, so hopefully if this company goes under, then it will at least be carried on by a community. But this is what the window looks like when you first open it up, and at this point you're also going to need to plug your flash drive in, so let me do that as well. Alright, and I have just plugged my flash drive in. I'm going to go ahead and actually restart Etcher. Always a good idea to start it after you've plugged the drive in, just to make sure it gets detected. So first thing you need to do is select the image. As you can see, this works with not only ISO images, but also IMG files, zip files, and some other formats, lots of other formats, DMGs, things like that. So just for the sake of this video, I'm going to go to the Arch Linux website. I don't actually have an ISO sitting on my hard drive right now, so we'll just grab the latest ISO for Arch, and I'll download it from HTTP here, just because I'm looking for something quick. Alright. I'm using an Arch ISO because they're relatively small. An Ubuntu ISO might be a couple gigabytes. OpenSUSE is probably a few more than that. Alright, and that download's done here, so I'll go ahead and close Firefox, and I can close my file browser as well. All we need now is Etcher. We can click Select Image, and it'll open up a place where we can go into our Downloads folder and find that thing we just downloaded. Right here in our Arch Linux folder, here's our ISO file. So we'll just open that up, and next we can select our drive. Once again, this is where the value of Etcher really comes into play. Click Select Drive here, and as you can see, it lists all of your drives that you've got in your system. It grays out any drives that are currently mounted or not accessible for writing ISO images to. You can see here I do have a 1 terabyte external hard drive plugged in right now, and even though something like DD, it would be difficult to distinguish between these two drives. You know, it's just one letter difference, dev SDA and dev SDB. But Etcher sees that this 1 terabyte external hard drive is, you know, that's a terabyte, and you're normally not wanting to write these 500 megabyte or 2 gigabyte ISO files to a terabyte size drive, because that's a waste of space. So it actually flags it. It says large drive here in a nice yellow label. So it warns you not to click on that one. As you can see here, we've got dev SDA. That's my Kubuntu 18.04.1 LTS. That's the image that's on that flash drive currently. And it also says the brand of the flash drive, Inavera, which is even more useful, and it says how big the drive is again. So all you have to do is click on the drive that you're wanting to write the ISO to and click continue. And, you know, just make sure this stuff looks correct. You got your image, you got your drive, and click flash. It is going to ask you for your root password because you are, like I said, wiping out that drive and putting this ISO on it. So I'll put my root password in, and now we are writing, and it does give you progress, which DD does not give. I know there are other command line utilities that do give progress, but it gives you the speed it's writing, it gives you an ETA. So once again, just some nice things that you wouldn't necessarily get on the command line, and Etcher looks even better than the old SUSE Studio Image Writer did. It's still around too if you do want an alternative, like I said, but this is the program that I use these days. We do have a couple settings here. Looks like anonymously report errors and usage statistics is on by default. Don't really like that. I'll uncheck it. But we do have some other options. Validate write, auto unmount. So you'll see after it does get done here, it's going to take a couple more minutes. But after it's done writing the ISO, it's actually going to take a checksum of the file and then take a checksum of the drive and just make sure that everything was written properly, which is also a nice thing. You never want an operating system installation to go wrong because of a failed installation media. That's just annoying. So it will validate, which I do leave that option turned on just because I like having it do that. So you can see here it's done writing, it's finishing, and then it's just going to validate there, and it validated very quickly because Arch, like I said, it has a small ISO, so there wasn't much to validate. But yeah, that's all there is to it. So you can click flash another to go back to the beginning, and aside from that, you can unplug your flash drive now, and that's it. As you can see, like I said, they do have like a paid Etcher Pro that you can get for flashing lots of drives at once and things like that. So that might be worth looking into if you're looking for a really robust solution. Just going through the rest of these settings, this unsafe mode down here, if we go back to our selection screen, as you can see, some drives are grayed out in the list here. Some of them just have tags like the large drive, but some drives, like internal drives inside your computer, Etcher's going to say correctly that 99% of the time nobody's going to want to write an ISO to those, so it's best to not even present them as an option because it's just making it easier for you to accidentally overwrite your files if they let you do that. But if you do want to enable those dangerous operations with all drives on your system, you can enable unsafe mode, And if we go back here now, you can see now it actually gives us another additional option that this is actually our SSD that I'm booted from. Once again, obviously, for one thing, I can't write to it right now because it's mounted, and for another thing, this drive contains the image that we are trying to write, so it can't overwrite the ISO that it's trying to write to the disk, so it won't let you select whatever disk the ISO is stored on. But yeah, if you do want to write to a disk and it's not letting you, you can just go in here and check the unsafe mode, and if it's possible, then it will let you at that point. And that's all there is to it. At that point, you can unplug your flash drive and use it to install Linux. You can keep it plugged in if you're just rebooting. I cannot give you specific instructions on how to boot into a flash drive on your computer because that is going to differ based on your motherboard. So look up your computer's make and model, or just your motherboard's make and model if you've got a self-built PC like I do. And one of the keys on your keyboard, like F2 or F10 or delete, will get you into a boot menu, and you can select your flash drive in the boot menu and boot into Linux. So hopefully that was useful to some people out there. I know this is a pretty simple topic, but I do get questions from time to time on some of my Linux installation videos on how you're supposed to get to the starting point. I always do this part off camera since it's not really specific to any one distribution. But yeah, if you're one of the people who was wondering about that, there you go. Before I go, I do want to say, guys, sorry I haven't made a whole lot of videos this month. I have been working behind the scenes, processing footage from Extra Life at the beginning of the month, and working on Displaced Season 3, which I will be doing a live stream on Saturday, December 1st, talking about Displaced, premiering episode 1 as it looks on that day. So you can tune in at live.knots.co for that. I do want to let you guys know the videos will probably stay a little slower for the rest of this year. I am graduating college this semester and trying to get a job right now. I will definitely be able to get a job, but whether it's a good job or a crappy job remains to be seen. So I do want to kind of focus on that right now because it is kind of important. But yeah, in case you guys were wondering, I am still here for now, just trying to ride out these last couple months at college. As you can see, I'm holding my Yeti in my hand right now. Normally I don't do stuff like this, but I do not give a crap right now. Just trying to get a video out because it's been a while. If any of my videos have been helpful to any of you guys, this is a time when it would very, very much be appreciated if you join the Nerd Club. You can do that by supporting me on Patreon. You can find all the information about it at nerdclub.knots.co. And I do want to give a huge thank you to all my current Nerd Club members for your continued support. Like I said, I know the videos have been slow recently. They will pick back up in 2019 if I can land myself a good job in the next month or two here. But yeah, additional support from any new members would definitely be hugely appreciated. This is the time of the year when it would, be very helpful. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions about this topic or any other Linux related topics, open source, free software, down in the comments section below or at the forums on my website, nerdonthestreet.com. For now though, that's everything I had to say in this video. I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the Nerd on the Street, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.